Good afternoon, members of the media here at the Lines for Change Center for Change office, and also to members of the media online with us. Thank you for joining us at our press conference today. Just before we start a long Easter weekend, let me start off by extending Easter greetings to everyone. With me today, I'm happy to say I have right next to me Chairman of the Alliance for Change, Member of Parliament David Patterson, and then Member of the Alliance for Change, Advisor on Indigenous Affairs, Laura. And next to Laura, we have Leader of the Alliance for Change, Nigel Hughes. I'd like to invite David Patterson to make his presentation.
Good afternoon, members of the media and the public. Guyana continues to be plagued by constant daily power outages. Despite the presence of 2 power ships and 27 containerized generator sets, the country is faced with daily power outages. The excuses provided by the PPP government has become a running joke to the citizens. If it is not birds on a wire, it is batteries in the power station, to excavator drivers, and other such simple, preventable excuses. Last year, 2024, GPL was given $16 billion subvention by the government of Guyana. That's $80 million to offset the cost of the above new equipment. In 2025, the sum has risen to 18 billion Guyana dollars in budget 2025, which is $90 million which was approved in February of 2025. Despite these large amounts of money, nothing has been accomplished. The management remains intact. Financial and commercial losses at GPL are at an all-time high, above 30%. Daily blockouts continue. The Alliance for Change, on behalf of the country, is demanding that the government immediately employ external as well as local competent staff. As the country can recall, in 2020, most of the competent staff was let go on resumption of the PPP's tenure, and the result is exactly what we are seeing now. To address these challenges, the much vaunted silver bullet by the PPP, which is the Gas Ashore project, is languishing. And as always, we have said that it will not solve the problems that are facing the country now. The PPP has boasted that with the 2 power ships and the 27 containerized generators, as well as the existing generation stock, that we have double the capacity needed. Yet every single day, the country is faced with blackout. So the challenges and the problems are obviously not limited to the generation alone. So with the government now pumping almost in excess of $3 billion into a project without fixing the underlying issues that plague the company, we can expect nothing else but excuses from the PPP and the GPL cooperation going forward. So it is our demand that the time is here for them to employ competent staff to advise them. Some of the staff in GPL, we do know, have the competence, but it's time that they know new ideas, new staff new thinking is injected into GPL. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we have two statements on GCOM today. I'd like to go ahead with the first one. AFC gravely concerned at the non-implementation of the recommendations of the International Observer Missions of Guyana's national and regional elections. The Alliance for Change, the AFC, continues to be gravely concerned that as Guyana rapidly approaches the 2025 elections, the Guyana Elections Commission appears uninterested in implementing the key recommendations of the International Observer Missions, which included the Carter Center, the Organization of American States, the OAS, the European Union, the Commonwealth, as outlined in their final reports. These fundamental recommendations were well articulated at the time and recommended to ensure that the challenges and errors of the 2020 elections debacle would not be repeated. With improvements in the system at GCOM, Guyanese citizens would be confident in the organization's ability to deliver free and fair elections to the people of Guyana. It is important to recall some of these recommendations. The OAS, Carter Center, and European Union observer missions all called for a comprehensive reform of the voter registration system, the undertaking of a house-to-house registration process at the earliest opportunity on completion of the 2020 elections, and a thorough update of the decades-old voters' register well ahead of the next election cycle based on inclusive consultations and public consensus. This has not been done. The Commonwealth and the European Union went further to highlight the urgent need for electoral and constitutional reform to address the polarization of the nation, including the merits and demerits of the Elections Commission and the electoral system. The OAS, Carter Center, and European Union all highlighted the importance of the use of technology to ensure timely release and publication of results, clearly written procedures for the transmission and tabulation of results to ensure consistency and traceability, and the possibility for all authorized stakeholders to examine statement of polls. Objections to the use of private residents as polling stations, the need for campaign finance regulation, regular engagements by GCOM with stakeholders, technology to assist in the identification of potential voters at the place of poll are all recommendations that GCOM to date has not informed this nation that they have examined at all. This was clearly highlighted at the meeting at the AFC's request with GCOM, with its chair and commissioners. A week ago, the Alliance for Change met with representatives from the European Union's Elections Exploratory Mission, who confirmed that out of their 26 recommendations, only 2 have been implemented over the last 5 years. The Alliance for Change has heard nothing from GCOM since our meeting of several weeks ago with regards to the several concerns raised, and continues to raise alarm that GCOM seems ready to go forward to the 2025 elections with much of the previous errors and challenges unresolved. Thank you. We'd now like to go to Laura George for her presentation.
Thank you, Kathy. The Alliance for Change commends the Ministry of Natural Resources, specifically the Guyana Geology and Mines Commission, on its reform to contain gold smuggling and money laundering in Guyana. Respect for the rule of law is priority, and the AFC is fully in support in the government's respect for the rule of law. The AFC, however, has concerns into several practices of the government of Guyana, as I said, specifically from the practices of GGMC, with regards to implementation of key aspects of mining laws and regulations, and that of common law resulting from court judgments. So, to be a bit specific, the ongoing delay in issuance of gold trade licenses must also have a system that supports gold traders and especially the employees of these establishments, as they depend on this work to support their families, and therefore GGMC must have an interim response system to support and meet what the situation is with regards to delay in issuance of gold trade licenses. Guyana's economy need to also be secured. There are numerous reports of legal claims of small miners being revoked and reissued to bigger miners. This is posing a small challenge to the small miners, both indigenous persons and non-indigenous persons, who are also trying to support their livelihoods, who are also trying to support their livelihoods. We call for transparent disclosure into the criteria being used in the reallocation of mining concessions, as we need to ensure that there is equality and access to the use of the natural resources of Guyana, and also that there is a system that ensures that effective monitoring also takes place in the mining activities as regards to environmental and human rights. We have seen over and over how the government agencies, specifically the Guyana Geology and Mines Commission, lack of respect to court judgment, and this is specific more to the Akawais and Arikunas of the Upper Mazaruni. In December 2022, a judgment made recognizing Aboriginal land rights of indigenous peoples, and also called for government agencies to consult with and seek the consent of the Akawais and Arikunas of the Upper Mazaruni if on anything related to land rights or anything related to land use and issuance of any sort of third-party concessions. Jawala Village today is facing the lack of GGMC's respect for court judgments and the lack of implementing its role in ensuring that natural resource extraction also respects environmental and human rights as it applies to Guyana and indigenous peoples. We call on GGMC and by extension the government of Guyana to respect the right to free, prior, and informed consent of indigenous peoples. We also recognize that persons have invested and therefore need to be supported in terms of protecting their investment and capital. But this must not take place on a one-sided basis at a blatant disregard to environmental and human rights. We call on the government of Guyana to ensure that its obligations to protect and respect the rights of indigenous peoples with regards to occupation, ownership, and use of its lands, territories, and resources are respected. We call on the government of Guyana to respect the right of indigenous peoples to be engaged, effectively consulted in the use of, the waterways, and to ensure that the environment, based on the aftermath of mining, also have a healthy environment, healthy water systems and ecosystems that is needed for indigenous peoples to have thriving cultures. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura George. And now the presentation from Nigel Hughes, the leader of the Alliance for Change.
Good afternoon, members of the press. Thank you very much for joining us. And I just want to echo the wishes of Catherine Hughes, who wishing everyone a good Easter. The low level of confidence in the Guyana Elections Commission suffered a further devastating blow last week when its former legal officer accused the commission, and in particular its chairman, firstly, of falsity of content. Just so everyone appreciates that, where your legal advisor says to you publicly that your position is false and the content of your position is false, that is a very serious and grave allegation made. We are unaware up to this time whether either the commission or the chairman has responded to that allegation. 2, the former legal officer went on to say, and I will just quote, that Mr. Prasad had formally inked a court document averring that residency is a requirement for regional elections. Sorry. Thank you. Sorry. Just apologies for the distraction. Let me just read that again. The former legal officer went on to say that Mr. Prasad, the CEO, had formally inked a court document averring that residency is a requirement for regional elections, and consequently, residency was an important element for voting in the regional elections. The subsequent reversal of that position by the CEO indicates very clearly that GCOM in and of itself is less than equivocal, less than clear, and quite frankly dishonest in their legal positions. The legal officer identified that GCOM had formally taken the position that residency was a requirement, and then for some unexplained reason completely reversed this position. Now, if this is the manner in which GCOM, as a deliberative body responsible for the announcement of elections results in this country, changes its position after significant consideration and reverse, it can only result in a lack of confidence in their ability to arrive at any legal position which we can regard as either consistent with the law or alternatively one in which the public can have confidence. The final consequence of the statements by the legal officer, which I think are of significant importance, is that he indicated that in the termination based on the legal position that he adopted in this most recent case brought by Carol Joseph, that the chair of GCOM and GCOM itself had been duplicitous because they had originally approved of his submissions and then purported to use the exact submissions that they had approved of as the basis for terminating him. We understand that in his assessment, he scored in the 90s, and therefore, if the only reason upon which he was terminated was the reversal of the position of GCOM, which is equally duplicitous, then it leads to very serious issues, not only in relation to the legal position of GCOM, but the manner in which they have created falsely a basis upon which to terminate the legal officer. And in the light of the unresponded to allegations and statements of the former legal officer, we immediately would like the chairman of GCOM to clarify that position. And secondly, we believe this is further evidence for our lack of confidence in the current chair of GCOM, and we believe that the legal officer should be immediately reinstated in the absence of anything looking like a credible response from GCOM or its chair. I thank you.
Thank you very much. And now we can go to our question time. Please, as a member of the media, go through the usual procedure of identifying yourself and the organization you represent. Do we have any questions?
Live wire. Okay, I see live wire news. Please go ahead. Good afternoon to the panel. Cordell Jones, Live Wire News. So my first question is for Mr. Hughes. Mr. Hughes, good day to you, sir. You have publicly indicated that your party will not accept Arby Norton as the consensus candidate if a coalition is formed. Could you explain why the AFC finds Mr. Norton, let's say, ineligible? And also, the name Terence Campbell, that has been put forward as a consensus candidate who is favorable to the party. Can you say what makes Mr. Campbell someone who people might say is a political novice, a more favorable candidate than Mr. Norton? And what appeal does Mr. Campbell have that Mr. Norton doesn't? And secondly, an update on the coalition talks. Sorry, go ahead, sir. Go ahead.
Okay, firstly, I'm not sure that I publicly indicated that Mr. Norton was not acceptable to the Alliance for Change. We would never personalize the basis. What we said is that there should be a scientific basis upon which the person who is going to lead the coalition is supported by data and other scientific information. I do not recall personally ever saying that we had an objection to the person of Mr. Norton. Clearly, if Mr. Norton, we conducted those scientific reviews and we looked at the data and Mr. Norton was the person on top, clearly that would be quite acceptable to us. So it's a process. So I just want to correct you in relation to that. In relation, your second question dealt with Mr. Campbell and coalition consensus candidate. Let me first of all say this, that what I'd said was that we would like to identify a consensus candidate who can do many things. I'll just identify 2 or 3 of them. One of them is unify the various opposition parties and elements so that we can move forward collectively with an agenda that's agreed between all the opposition elements. And that was the basis upon which I had commented on a consensus candidate. 2, in relation to the person of Terence Campbell, you may recall from the interview, or perhaps you have not seen it, that when I was asked for examples, I did offer the name of Mr. Campbell. Now, the question of whether the person who can unify the opposition has to be a politician, I'm sorry, I beg to differ. The person does not necessarily have to be a politician. There are several good people, and there have always been several good people in the country who come from civil society, who are not necessarily politicians, who are very capable and perhaps possess the requisite criteria for leading the country. So I don't wish to limit the identification of a consensus candidate to the political class. I think what is clearly under serious consideration here is that clearly the direction of the country at the moment leaves several persons out of consideration, and we need to be able to find a common program which will allow all citizens to participate. So there's no question, or I should say there's no presumption that the person should be a politician per se. And one of the advantages a consensus client will have, a consensus candidate will have, is that he will have the benefit of a very wide array of politicians across several political parties to be able to advise her or him on the way forward. In relation to an update on the talks, Mr. David Patterson is the officer from the Alliance for Change who specifically speaks on those matters, and I will pass over to you.
Sir, before you pass off the mic, please, I just would like to ask, is Mr. Azzuddin, does the AFC see Mr. Azzuddin Mohammed as one of those persons? Mr. Hughes? Mr. Hughes? Quickly before Mr. Patterson continues. I'm not hearing anything.
We're not hearing anything anymore, Mr. Patterson.
Can you hear
The
me?
audio is gone. The audio is gone.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Yes,
I
I
think
was
there's
asking Mr.
outstanding
Hughes if
questions.
Mr.
Excuse me,
Azuddin
sir.
Mohammed is one of.
Excuse me, sir. Excuse me, sir. First and foremost, I would like to give an update on the discussion, the coalition discussion. Regrettably, we have, despite the best efforts of our negotiation team, been able to arrive at a mutually beneficial arrangement with APNU. We've communicated our decision, regrettably so, to APNU, and we've also communicated to them that we will proceed with our campaign as Alliance for Change since time is of the essence. We have indicated, as we have always indicated, there are other avenues, several other avenues, on which the party, the AFC, can work and collaborate with APNU and other individuals who are interested in other avenues other than in the upcoming elections, other than an established coalition. Of course, as always, the door is always open prior to nomination day. Should there be a change in this position or change in circumstances. But as it stands, we have communicated this position to APNU before, and I do think that it was received. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Ms. Hughes, could Mr. Hughes respond to my follow up? Sorry to be so forward. My apologies.
Sir, listen to me. I will respond as before. We've already, I think the party have already set out. There's no discussions with Mr. Azuddin. He is doing what he feels is best, and we wish him well.
Thank you very much. Next question, please, if there are any others.
Yes,
Sorry?
that is Shabral
Antonio
Demerara
Day.
Williams.
Antonio, please go ahead.
Wow.
Good afternoon. I'm Travis Chase for Antonio Day. I'm just joining via his Zoom. Can you hear me?
Yes, we're hearing you loud and clear.
Thank you. Mr. Patterson, is it that you're saying that the AFC will be contesting the 2025 general elections alone? That's my question.
I've indicated that we regrettably have not been able to make any agreement, and we've indicated that we have commenced and will commence our elections 2025 at the AFC.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any other questions?
Yes, that is Shabral Demerara Williams.
Please go ahead, Dennis.
Thank you. Mr. Patterson, could you say what influenced the decision not to proceed with the APNU, and what did the scientific data show as far as the presidential candidacy is concerned?
Dennis, the negotiators, despite the efforts, I think, from both sides, were unable to reach a mutually acceptable agreement. There's no specific issue I would like to venture into, and we do think time is of the essence. I mean, obviously, the country knows that an election at the latest will be November. The earliest it can be an earlier date, and we do think that it's in the best interest for us to proceed to full election preparation. And mean, scientific data obviously would be generally polls, focus groups, etc. And obviously that has to be mutual. That would have been, if agreeable, would have been mutually done by both parties, so they have a level of confidence in it. Unfortunately, time has progressed onwards, so we do consider that we're out of time.
Yeah, but did the scientific mechanisms show whether or not Mr. Norton or Mr. Hughes was ahead of either person, and how did that influence your decision? And could you say quickly, I know you said you have not spoken with Mr. Azruddin, and I'm taking that. What value do you see, however, to Mr. Mohammed potentially bringing to a broader coalition? And will your party be including existing well-known or prominent parliamentarians of the PNCR and APNU in its list of candidates?
Right. Obviously, on your first question about scientific data, that was a route proposed. I don't think that it was mutually agreed upon. So I can't comment further on that. On your second question of Mr. Azruddin, no one knows if he's running, but as the Lines of Change of Leaders set out, that every citizen is entitled to, within our constitution, to do what, to contest the election if they so fit. And we wish him, if he does intend to contest, we do wish him best of success in his endeavors. And finally, the question of who will be part of the Alliance for Change, that is, should persons, as we've always been, should anybody want to join, groups, parties, individuals, former members of the, even the PPP, whoever it is that wants to come on board, as we've done all the time, we will openly disclose such when and how and if that happens.
Thank you very much. We have a question now from Davina.
Hi, good afternoon. Davina Bhagat with Kite News. I think one of my questions was asked by my colleague Dennis, but I think I joined a bit late. I'm not sure. Did you mention if your position regarding the coalition has been officially communicated to the leader of the opposition already?
The negotiation teams have been in contact. I don't know if I can't say what the other side has done, but I do know our team has communicated this position to the APNU's team.
Aren't you worried, though, Mr. Patterson or Mr. Hughes, that the fact that you're not going it together, that this will inevitably lead to the PPP returning to office either as having full control of the National Assembly or as a minority government?
Yeah, listen to me, Dennis. I've never seen. I know I've never seen a party in free fall as in the PPP current position. Every single thing that they've done has collapsed flat on its face. They're in the mode of huge giveaways, unplanned expenditures. Every single day, they're trying something as the people, as the local parlance would be trying a thing. Obviously, and you would know, being in the media, and I'm sure your other colleagues, that it's not impactful. To suggest that that they will be back in government after being so inept, so corrupt, is a stretch which we don't agree with. Every single day, right now you see it out that because of their statements, the BBC issued a press release. They declined to comment on it internationally, and then when the BBC published the article, they then run to dismiss it. The issues you see now that are facing us with the position of China, which obviously we do not agree that there is a process, that's all made by the PPP's ineptitude. I mean, you can name it. I mean, our city, as you know, Dennis, is about to be flooded as the rains are coming. That's directly in the hands of the PPP. You name it, every single sector, you know what I mean, is on decline. So to think that they will get back in is obviously a belief that we don't hold to.
So you're saying even though you'll be contesting the election separately, you believe that the PP will lose?
Yes.
And sir, can you also say at this stage whether the APU and the AFC will whether there is any room for any sort of
Sorry, Dennis,
return
you're
to the
breaking up.
negotiation?
You break up at the
Is
end.
there is there any room though for a return to the negotiating table?
Look, I said in my statement that you know, I mean, nothing is over until it's over. You have until nomination day to put in your final list. What I'm saying is, as election campaign mechanisms go, we are proceeding as we are now. Nothing is impossible. I mean, I would be foolhardy to say if anything is impossible. I made in my statement, there are several ways in which we do hope to collaborate with the APNU and other political parties, particularly when it comes to GCOM, when it comes to certain other matters that both of us, all political parties, will be affected in. We do expect it out that we can collaborate with them as we did before outside of a coalition.
Do
Thank
you
you,
believe
Mr.
Mr.
that you
Patterson,
Patterson.
could you give us an update on
sir, I'm in the floor. I'm
current
in the floor.
Hold
litigations
on,
before the court?
guys.
I'm in the
Hold
floor,
on,
Mr.
sir.
hold on.
Patterson?
Hold on. I have Travis Chase, who's had his hand up for quite a while, and also Antonio. So can we
All
go to
right.
those two, and then we promise to come back? Travis, your question?
Yes, Ms. Hughes. Antonio Day here from Nightly News. I would like to ask, even though the AFC and APNU may be contesting separately this year, would there still be parliamentary representation on matters of national importance?
Look, we obviously we have said since 2022 when we formally as a party exited from the conditions of the previous accord that at the parliamentary level we remain committed and working together. I do not see that we will not. I don't see any reason why, if there's anything of national importance or mutually beneficial to the parliamentary parties moving forward, and in during the remaining life of the 12th Parliament, that we cannot and will not work together.
Thank you. And I see a hand up from Tammy.
No,
Good afternoon.
sorry, you're breaking up.
Sorry, Tammy, we can't hear you.
Everyone.
So, so let's move on.
Let me move on to the next question while Tammy sorts out
Quick
her internet.
question.
Yes. Can I ask quickly, Mr. Patterson,
Yes.
do you believe that the AFC was
Miss-
asking
Miss-
for too much that resulted in the collapse of the talks? You wanted representative of the list, you wanted party leader, you wanted Speaker of the National Assembly.
Obviously not. I mean, I think we have both sides has very, very competent negotiators. Both sides, I do think, would have articulated their position quite ably. And unfortunately, we were unable to reach a mutually beneficial agreement.
Any other questions? I think
Just a
Tammy,
clarification.
Live Wire's hand has been up for a while.
I thought you had pulled it down, but please go ahead.
Mr. Patterson, could you give us an update on any legal matters you may have ongoing in the courts in relation to your time in public office?
Well, as you know, that they've thrown out almost every single thing. I mean, if you
But
ask
not
me,
everything. The ones that are ongoing.
oh, what I mean, one is ongoing, which has been ongoing for 2 years. hasn't been called up as yet. So obviously you should ask the people that have asked, that are telling you, give me a background. Why is it that after 2 years the trial or what has not? And you should also ask them, for the fairness and completeness, they have lost 2 cases as well, for the records, you know what I mean? And they've appealed them both. You can ask them why, when are they
Them
intending
who,
to?
sir? Please be clear, because I don't know anybody at the court. So when you say them, ask them who?
Oh, whoever it is that you have interviewed that have given you the information to ask here today.
Okay, thank
That's
you
your
very much.
assumption, sir?
I want
That's my
to,
response.
thank
Okay, sir. Thank
you.
you.
Thank you. I want to give Tammy an opportunity to ask her question. Tammy?
Good afternoon. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we're hearing you
Loud
loud
and
and
clear
clear
now.
this time.
Oh, thank God. I had to come off of GTT internet.
Oh, don't say that.
Um,
Don't say that publicly, please.
I'm sorry, One Communications. I have 2 quick questions. The first one is pertaining to the AFC APNU situation. Um, in 2018, the AFC had made the decision to go it alone at the local government elections, and the results were a bit less than pleasing. Granted that local government election is not as big as the GRE, but what evidence does the AFC have, if any, that its support base has increased enough that another adventure in going it alone will see the AFC being able to garner the kind of support that it previously saw, or even get more support than what you guys have been able to garner so far, especially in terms of enough votes for seats in Parliament?
Right. And you,
I also have a second question. I don't know if you want me to give you the question to do both. Okay, the second question, earlier Ms. Yu spoke about changes that need to take place at GCOM in order for there to be changes to elections. Earlier, a few weeks ago, we saw the Chief Justice mention that while changes are needed, it mainly needs to take place in terms of changes to the Constitution and changes to the laws. Is there a particular reason that the EFC continues to push for GCOM to make changes, even though, like in the case when there's court cases, it's always being said that the change actually needs to happen at the level of constitutional reform? Why do we not see the AFC speak more on how they plan to cooperate with other parliamentarians to push for constitutional reform, if that is what is more needed than GCOM to make changes that could eventually be challenged in court and be considered unconstitutional?
thank you. I'll take the first, and Knight, you'll take the second. First and foremost, as you started off by saying that the local government election obviously is a small microcosm of the elections. So we're confident, very, very confident in our position. If we were not, we probably would not be in elections. I want to say this to all the persons in here, I mean, including the ones that have been sent here to ask the questions. Since I've joined this party, we have been called dead meat. We've been given up for dead. I've actually went to a few of my wakes, because the wakes for the AFC, purely because though it was being sponsored by other persons, and I do enjoy a free beer or two. But to think that we're dead, and the vice president, who will be on in about 10 minutes, will spend half an hour, and I've been spending half an hour every single week. And he's not a preacher, so therefore it's obviously not our death announcement. He will spend half an hour discussing what the AFC has done or have not done. He'll spend the other 15 minutes to degrade our leaders. And that alone tells you, you don't hear him speaking about JLP, the Schumann, do you?
LJP.
LJP. You don't hear him speaking about those parties. You don't hear him speaking about ANOG. You don't hear him speaking about anybody as any other political party than the Alliance for Change. Why? So to answer your question, you should ask him if you go there, Tammy, why is it that he keeps attacking a party which he does not fear? And that should answer your question. So we're confident in where we're going and what we have to do. We're not boastful. We know there's a lot of work to be done. And we know that the time is against us. That is why we've made the decision to kickstart officially and get so that we can get our members in full gear. Obviously, as I said before, there is always no door is closed, but as the old saying goes, when a door is closed, a window opens. So if any windows open for us between now and then, we'd obviously consider them. Thank you very much. And I pass to Nigel for the very legal question.
Thank you very much, Tammy. I just want to clarify, because quite often in the noise in Guyana, people lose focus about the issues. One, the United States has always been committed from the time it was established to constitutional reform. We believe the constitutional architecture of the country needs to be changed. I believe your question was to electoral matters. I want to remind you of the following facts. The chairwoman of GCOM said that fingerprints, biometrics were possible. It's just that it was not possible in time for what she envisaged this cycle of elections is concerned. So in other words, the chair of GCOM said fingerprinting is legal from her perspective. Given her perspective recently, one never knows whether that's still the position. But she has said that. The only caveat was that she said that it couldn't be done in this election. In relation to the question of residency, which was the focus of the Carol Joseph action that was recently concluded, GCOM itself, if you listen to what their legal officer, Kurt De Silva, has said, the GCOM itself, in law, their opinion was that some curious, unexplained reason, after the submissions were laid over with the Chief Justice, they changed their position. Now, the decision of the Chief Justice is not a final decision, and therefore, I believe the fact that it is under appeal means that there is possibly another
I'm sorry, the audio, I'm not hearing anything. I don't know if anybody else is too.
Are you hearing now? Is this any better?
It's back on now. It's going and coming. I'm sorry.
May well be the weather, so my apologies. I'm not sure where you ceased to hear.
It dropped several times, so sometimes you heard some sentences, then nothing.
Okay, so just forgive me for repeating those of you who have been hearing consistently. On the issue of legal proceedings and on the issue of constitutional change, the Alliance for Change, from the time it was established in 2005, has taken the principal position that there needs to be a change in the constitutional. I believe that the present constitutional arrangements are capable of addressing a diverse society like we have. On the specifics about litigation for elections, we want to first of all point out that the chair of GCOM previously said that fingerprinting was legal and possible. Her only concern was that it couldn't be done in time for this election. So we've had that statement from the chair. Secondly, the legal officer, or former legal officer for GCOM, who was responsible for advancing the arguments on GCOM's behalf in the Carol Joseph matter that was recently concluded, he has said that GCOM's chair and GCOM's CEO had arrived at the legal position, in addition to himself, that residency was a requirement for the regional election. So that legal position was agreed between them and subsequently advanced by Mr. De Silva. For some curious reason, the CEO who had previously held that position just came out publicly and changed his position. The decision of the Chief Justice is not final. There are two other levels of courts that have to determine this issue, assuming they go past the second. And when we've had the benefit of the learning of the final court, then we will know what the position is. Your specific question was whether we should push for constitutional reform rather than pursue these legal issues. I dare say the two are not exclusive. We believe in constitutional reform. We believe that we need urgent constitutional reform, and I am sure that the collective opposition will be considering that. In relation brought in the Carl Joseph case, we were not part of that case. We believe that it ought to benefit from the decision of whichever appellate court the parties decide should finally determine this issue. But I believe that we should take note that it was GCOM's position, as announced by their legal officer, that residency was a requirement. And the only way, not the only way, the preferred way of dealing with our differences in interpretation, our differences in position, is to have the courts rule. We don't want to use any other method, and therefore I quite contrary to what you may be suggesting, that we shouldn't be pursuing legal declarations. I think that is the route that we ought to go, because any other route may not necessarily have the benefit of enjoying position on the rule of law, and that's how we solve our differences. We go to court for interpretations, or we go to court for a final decision.
Mr. Hughes.
Thank you very much. We have a question again from Livewire and then from Tammy, and those I think will be the last questions unless we have anything else after.
Yes, I do.
Go ahead, Livewire.
Mr. Hughes, I want to ask you about Linden. You were recently up there during the unrest. I did see a live video where you would have said you were at the police station in the area with a witness to what would have taken place, and you were having some issues in terms of getting some ranks to take your statement. I'm checking to see, did you actually get to submit that statement? Are you representing this gentleman in this matter, and have you guys been engaged by the team that is here doing the investigation?
First of all, it wasn't my statement. I took an eyewitness to the police station for him to give a statement on what he observed. He eventually was allowed to give that statement after we went public in that video that I believe you're referring to. Two, because he's a witness, he's not a suspect, he doesn't need a lawyer. I only went because I think it is important in situations like this that people who have witnessed what has gone on ought to make that information available. In relation to your final question, in relation whether I represent any of the persons who were affected, no, I do not at the moment. And when I accompanied that gentleman to the station, I was just merely discharging my civic duty.
Thank you very much, Tammy. Tammy, do you have a final question?
A follow-up to my previous question. Yes, can you guys hear me?
We're hearing you. Please go ahead.
Can you hear me? Internet?
Yes, we're hearing you. Go ahead.
Oh, okay, just checking, because I know I have the internet. All right, thank you so much. A follow-up to my question that Mr. Hughes answered. Can you say what steps are the AFC doing to push constitutional reform? And given that constitutional reform will need 2/3 majority in Parliament, what is the AFC doing to lobby the other parties to ensure that we are working towards constitutional reform, particularly in the area of electoral provisions?
Tammy, this is purely for clarification. You're asking about what we're doing for electoral reform before elections, or what we intend to do after, or is it a combination of both? I'm not sure. I don't want to go on and on.
It was specifically about constitutional reform. What are you guys doing right now?
But you're talking about before the end of this parliament or after we get elected? I can answer both. In relation to
For
electoral,
that, it will be what are you presently doing and what are the plans going forward for? Yes,
right.
thank you.
Okay, so I'm assuming you're talking about what we are going to do in this parliament before this parliament comes to an end. We will certainly explore and push with our partners in the opposition legislation to amend the Constitution to allow greater transparency and greater confidence in the electoral system. We don't suspect that it will enjoy the support of the present administration, but we certainly would seek their support. Because at the end of the day, we want a country in which people have confidence in the system. In relation to post-elections, the Alliance for Change, as you know, had captured a lot of its recommendations for constitutional reform back in 2016 when it submitted to the Prime Minister its recommendations for constitutional reform. We also have updated positions on that. I'm not sure that we have enough time this afternoon to address that. But one of the things we'd like to recommend immediately before this Parliament comes to an end is that the government establish the Human Rights Commission. The Human Rights Commission has recommended since 2003. That's 22 years ago. And up to now, we don't have the Human Rights Commission. So long before we even get to tabling legislation, one of the obvious things that should be done immediately is establish the Human Rights Commission.
Sir, in all fairness, your party just came out of government. I'm just asking, Human Rights Commission, why not under the AFC, APNU administration? Have you ever asked your colleagues?
Mr. Jones, I welcome the question. Like I said, I think I headed a subcommittee that made recommendations to the Prime Minister at the time. It was tabled in Parliament. It didn't get much further than that. If you're asking me if I can undo the past, clearly I'm not yet possessed of those powers. I don't think in my current life I'd ever be possessed of those powers. The reality is we need those changes. I personally have been advocating for them. I believe the AFC has been continuously advocating for them. And as the inference of your question is that why didn't they do it while they were in office? Well, the AFC alone was not elected to office. As soon as we are elected in our individual capacity, we will certainly be pursuing that.
Thank you very much. I want to thank the
Miss,
media
Mrs.
for
Hughes, can you please
joining
permit me
us.
one last question?
I'm sorry, we kind of pushed for time.
One last question. Mr. Hughes?
Is that, okay, go ahead, Dennis. Last question, folks.
Mr. Hughes, as the presidential candidate for your party going into the next elections, what can we expect of you in the coming weeks and months, and who will be your running mate?
So when you say expected me, you mean campaign manifesto?
As presidential candidate, now that your party has decided not to go it with the APNU, what can we expect from you as the presidential candidate in the weeks
Right.
and months ahead? And will Ms. George be your prime ministerial candidate?
Dennis, I want to say welcome to the National Executive Committee of the Alliance for Change.
I harbor no such ambitions for any party.
Well, good. So the recommendations for Prime Minister are obviously made.
No, I'm not recommending, I'm asking.
I know, and my response is the recommendations for Prime Ministerial candidate are made by the party. That's why I was asking if you're joining. And until the party has deliberated on that, we wouldn't know who the Prime Ministerial candidate is likely to be. In relation to what my position is as presidential candidate, the party had advocated and arrived at that position a long time ago. We will now, since the 31st of March has passed and our last-ditch efforts have not been as fruitful as we hoped they would be, we are going to be rolling out over the next few weeks the plans of the Alliance for Change. It's not just, this is not a Nigel Hughes thing, this is an Alliance for Change position. And as you know, we have a raft of measures and positions and policies that we'd like to take. And those will be coming. I mean, I could highlight some of them, but I don't think we have the time today. But that certainly will be there.
Thank you.
Thank you very much to members of the media that joined us this afternoon. I want to especially wish everyone a happy Easter. I know tomorrow is our Good Friday holiday, and it is a time of reflection for the Christian community. And of course, on Monday, we celebrate the ascension of Christ and we fly our kites. And I ask everyone to be very safe when they're flying their kites. Make sure we stay away from those electrical wires. And I just wish everyone a safe and happy Easter holiday from the Alliance for Change. Thank you.